I want to extend my welcome and thanks to you for attending this charge conference. I am Nick Showalter, Superintendent of the Lemoyne River District and also Superintendent for some churches in the Illinois River District. The United Methodist Church exists as a connectional church, and therefore local congregations work together with the bishop and the district superintendents to conduct the business of a local church, because our work together comprises the ministry of the United Methodist Church. While some may be quick to point out the downsides of the connectional church, the many positives, I believe, outweigh the challenges. We, as United Methodists, are in a time of rapid change, reflecting the rapid change in our culture. One of the changes that is upon us is the right sizing of our denominational structure. Local churches have realized and been expressing for a long time that apportionments, those askings that are shared from a local church to the conference, are inhibitive and cost prohibitive. And we at the conference level also have recognized for a number of years that we need to downsize our structure in order to be more nimble and more efficient. So as local churches diminish, the structures which are in place to support your work also must downsize. So in June of 2022, at the meeting of the Illinois Great Rivers Conference, laity and clergy together decided to reduce from 10 to 5 the number of districts. Most likely, this will reduce the number of district superintendents from our current 8 to 5. This will result, of course, in significant cost savings, but it will also force us to live very differently, beginning now and moving into the immediate future. I'm here with you today by video because I felt this was the time to begin to think differently and move into different models as the work of the superintendent changes. Today, your charge conference is being led by an ordained elder who is allowed by the Book of Discipline to conduct charge conferences. As we move into the future, I believe we will see some responsibilities like this dispersed to pastors and laity, which could turn out to be a very helpful change for revitalizing ministry and leadership at the local level. Let me say just a few more things about the right sizing of our districts. The plan at this point is still developing, and I anticipate in the coming days the bishop will inform us about what those new 5 districts will look like. And then congregations, United Women in Faith, and other organizations can begin to move into that new reality. We do know that by July 1 of 2023, there will be 5 districts and assumedly 5 superintendents. The 2023 conference budget will reflect this downsizing, and the ask from each local church will be adjusted with this smaller demand as part of a calculation. This brings us to the other issue about which there is great anxiety, and that's the ongoing discussion in our denomination about whether we will split or whether we won't, or what the denomination will look like. As I have explained to you before, the General Conference meets every 4 years in normal times. Laity and clergy from all over the world come together to comprise what's known as General Conference. General Conference is the only body that can speak for the denomination, and it is only at that conference where proposed changes to the Book of Discipline are made and finalized. So changes as small as changing a term, a word, to a change as big as splitting the denomination, that's all determined by that general conference. The result is a new edition of what's called the Book of Discipline. Legislation that's proposed at one general conference, if it is approved and implemented, it shows up in the Book of Discipline. If legislation brought to one general conference is defeated and not embraced, then it doesn't automatically carry over to the next general conference. So as of today, there has been no change to the United Methodist denomination, particularly in regard to our stance and practice on human sexuality since the last general conference, especially called session in 2019. At that last general conference, there was a strengthening of the position that has always existed, or at least has existed for the last several years. United Methodist beliefs, denominational structure, or stance on human sexuality has not changed. And in regard to human sexuality, our stance, including the slight strengthening of that stance in 2019, has otherwise not changed for 50 years. 1972 was the date when the so-called exclusionary language was added to our Book of Discipline. Now, it's unfortunate, but there are those who believe we should divide. And there are those who have an interest in seeing that happen. And some of those folks are very busy trying to raise anxiety levels, spreading rumors, repeating innuendo, and unfortunately making downright lies about the United Methodist Church. That fear-mongering is causing a great deal of anxiety in the church, even among longtime faithful United Methodists. So let me try to be clear. There has been no change to the United Methodist Church, especially in regard to prohibitions about human sexuality. The United Methodist Church prohibits self-avowed practicing homosexuals from serving as United Methodist pastors, being ordained and becoming a pastor of a local church. While I can't refute all the rumors I read and hear, let me also say this: there is no plan. There is no upcoming vote or decision your congregation will be asked to make about staying or going from the United Methodist Church. Now, in previous general conferences, there have been proposals that would have required congregations to choose in some way, a vote or other kinds of configurations, whether they would choose to be more traditional or choose to be more progressive. But those proposals either failed and or were ruled unconstitutional, and so they do not exist, have no power for any United Methodist congregation. There are congregations choosing to disaffiliate from the denomination. The Book of Discipline, approved by the General Conference, provides a path for a congregation to disaffiliate, but it's a process that we walk through together. And any congregation who wants to know more can contact me. I want every United Methodist congregation and pastor to remain United Methodist. And my best advice at this point is that this is not the time to be making decisions to leave the church, the United Methodist Church. Two reasons. First, the United Methodist Church has not changed, and there is no certainty that the denomination will ever choose to change its stances, especially around human sexuality. Secondly, the costs and the options of leaving the denomination and or transferring to another denomination are not as favorable right now as they may someday become. For the last several years, I've shared with you about the uncertainty surrounding the Boy Scouts of America and their bankruptcy proceedings. I'm relieved to report to you that our United Methodist part of that settlement is now certain and has been approved by the bankruptcy court judge. The latest information I have is that other parts of that BSA bankruptcy case were not approved, and that there is not at this time a final and complete settlement between the Boy Scouts of America and the survivors who brought suit against the BSA. I can tell you that the United Methodist Church worked very hard over many months, and the denomination was able to settle our portion of the claim for $30 million. The United Methodist Church will contribute to the Survivors Trust Fund $30 million. The denomination then turned to conferences like ours, the Illinois Great Rivers Conference. And our conference was able to contribute $604,288 toward that $30 million settlement. This means that in our conference, there were claims against local congregations, and those claims may very well have exposed individual congregations to lawsuits had the denomination not acted on behalf of all congregations. This is a stark realization of the benefits of a connectional system. No congregation had to face a painful legal fight, and the $604,288 was paid from conference reserves generously given through conference claims and well stewarded by conference leadership. New practices to allow the Boy Scouts and United Methodists to work well and safely together have already been communicated to local churches. And if you need more information about that, please don't hesitate to contact me. Lastly, let me name some of the ways in which local churches and conference leaders work together as a connectional church. This Charge Conference is one of the most visible events when the business of a local church is affirmed by a vote of leaders in the presence of an elder representing the bishop. The voting we do today, while it may seem an afterthought or rubber stamp to decisions already made in your congregation, does have important implications. In fact, each of the votes at today's Charge Conference has potential legal implications, and so our work today is important. Local churches are also required to submit an audit of their books, their finances each year at the end of the calendar year to the district office. Churches that do not do that or are late in doing that, we will follow up and remind you and continue to ask you to submit those, because as partners together in ministry, we hold one another accountable. And let me say that just a couple of years ago, at one of these charge conferences, a local congregation came to understand that malfeasance was happening in their church with their church treasurer, only because the checks and balances that we practiced together revealed a problem that they were then able to pursue and bring to resolution. Each year, local churches are asked at the end of each calendar year to submit their statistics from the previous calendar year. These statistics provide information about current reality of both the congregation, and when combined, tell us what the district looks like, what the conference looks like, what the denomination as a whole looks like. Your congregation's conference claims amounts are based on the information shared through these reports. So it's essential that this task be done responsibly. If this is the first time you have ever heard about year-end reports, or Ezra reports, as they are sometimes called because of the database into which they are submitted, please contact your pastor or superintendent for more information. Let me then finally finish by exclaiming that in spite of all that is on our plate in this rapidly changing world, United Methodism continues to thrive, both in local congregations and in our shared joint ministry efforts. But let me also say, I know it is not easy. I know the challenges that local congregations face, and I know the defeat that you may be experiencing or have experienced as you try to do faithful ministry. I look forward to how God will continue to move and live in our best efforts at faithfulness together.